Live from the Shooting from the Lip studio in Louisville, Kentucky, it's the KT Unearthly Show with your hosts, Kevin Hale and Tiffany Mack.
What is up? Kevin Hale up in this Shooting from the Lip studio here on this Friday night, November the 11th, 11/11/2016. Tiffany, before, I think, looks like you're screening her call. 11/11, we'll let Tiffany make a wish a little later, but it is the KT Unearthly show. Again, on this Friday night, doing the paranormal theme thing, shooting the shift in reality tonight. Is Shooting from the Lip continues with the live shows this Friday night. We also do the shows on Monday and Wednesday, different themes, but just as entertaining. Tiffany, turning her mic on. What is up, T-Mac?
Hey, I'm here. I'm really excited about tonight. How's your day? You sound sort of tired. Are you ready to rock, or are you wanting to go to bed?
No, I'm ready. I'm ready to. Yeah, we're gonna rock and roll tonight. I'm getting my second wind. I've got to. My daughter texts me. She's gonna be at Diamonds in St. Matthews later with some friends, and we know the bands that are a band that's playing there. So you got to come out here. And so I think after the show, I'm gonna jet out to St. Matthews to watch some live music and make it a night. But
fun.
First thing first, you have me for the next 2 hours, which is a lot more than a lot of other chicks in this town can say. So we're going to do it. Social media plugs. You can subscribe to our show on iTunes and YouTube. Twitter at The Shooting Lip. My Twitter at Kevin Hale 423. Tiffany is at Tiffany Mac _ET. You can like us, follow us on Facebook and Instagram, Shooting from the Lip and the KT Unearthly Show. Live tonight via Blog Talk Radio. Tonight's guest is, can I say his name, or is it too much of a secret to say his name? Tiff? Oh,
no, we've already said his name. It's out there.
Well, we've
Everybody
posted
knows now.
Yeah, all right. I just don't know if I can say it. Can I say it and, not get, Big Brother?
Just do it. Just do it.
Okay. Chris Bledsoe is going to hang with us tonight. He's going to share with us the Fayetteville Incident. He's got other stories to share with us. He's probably going to be pleading the fifth over a lot of questions that we'll be throwing at him, but it is what it is. With every show, Tiffany, we do our TK foreplay, a little quick paranormal article that I'll throw at you and get your opinion to kick the night off. You sent me one. It was very interesting. PTSD, something that we know a lot of our soldiers, veterans, suffer from. It is real, and then quick shout out before we do that. Let's give a shout out to all of our veterans, past and actually current. I mean, you guys kill it, you rock it. Much love to you guys and gals for taking care of us in every way possible, and definitely putting us before you. So
and allowing us to have this freedom of election that we just encountered this week. And no matter what the outcome was and whatever you felt, due to that, it's still because of the veterans. The veterans have helped in this process to get us to this point where we're able to make choices for our own country and our own families. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes. The article you sent me was a veteran who was suffering with PTSD, went the route of exorcisms to cast out his demons. It was a very interesting article. And at first, when you look at the title, you think of the article, you're thinking, what? But then once you realize what they go through, what they're coming back with, and how exorcism in a sense is a means to rid or decompress, if you will. But what was your take? Share with us the article.
Well, I do feel that when people get into the military, they're probably not really well prepared mentally for what they may encounter, and especially in a time of war. And we've had so many of these wars throughout our history, and over the past 25 years, people are starting to come back with what they term PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and the article really just sort of brings about the fact that some of these people are haunted. And, there's different ways to exercise your demons. But when it comes down to it, our veterans now are not able to express their feelings about the situation. It's always been deemed sort of like taboo to discuss it. And
right.
part of the idea of recovery has to do with letting it out, letting out
right.
the stories, letting out the anger and fear and even the just depression of what you have done, the overwhelming feelings of sadness or anger or angst or it's a scary, sad thing. And I've seen a lot of people come back, and we've had a lot of men who have come back and committed suicide, and it's our friend Remy was one of those guys that wanted to help with the 21 soldiers a day, and they started doing the push-ups, or is it 21 or 22?
Mm-hmm. 22.
I can't remember. 22. So
yeah, 22.
And I think that this was a very good way for people to bring up this fact and help people understand and be more compassionate towards our men and women coming back out of war zones or just out of the military, and they need that support from us. So the article sort of ties in the fact that these demons are with us, and sometimes they're brought back from the situations. And if you have a belief in the afterlife, or if you have a belief in spirits, what happens if one is attached to the person who killed them? And it's a scary subject. And since we do this paranormal podcast, it's a legitimate topic to bring up on this day. So, what are your feelings about that, Kevin?
It's you definitely feel for the people who are experiencing the real life, in your face, if you will, killing, the reality of killing and or being killed, the type of violence, for a lot of these people. My father was in the Vietnam War, and to this day, he will still, my mom will have to wake him up in the middle of the night, not often, but every now and then he's having, nightmares. And it's, I can't imagine. I'm not built for that kind of experience. So the people who do go over there, I think you're right that they don't have. Obviously, they're trained physically, trained to do that kind of combat, and they're probably they're going through all these exercises and things to toughen them, mentally as well. But to hear bullets flying by your ears, to see your fellow compadre, your people you're with, blown up in pieces, it's sad. But so the fact that they're coming back, and these images, these visions, those moments will never go away. And I've always wondered if we're talking exorcism in this case, but could hypnosis, if you went that route, things like that, would that help? So
like alternative medicine.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
And something tells
I
me,
think it's a possibility.
Yeah. Something tells me that their HMO will not cover an exorcism.
Probably not.
Probably not.
But
That's
I do
bullshit,
have
too.
one example. I do have one example. My cousin, I love him dearly. I tell him that as much as possible. His name is Donnie Jones. He came back, and I think he had maybe 6 tours. I mean, it was a lot. And he had a lot of friends and die. And the thing is, they're not just friends; they become your family, and
Right.
you become a part of them as much as they are of you. You rely on them for your life, for your existence, for that time while you're over there. And losing them
Right.
is
And there has to
almost
be a lot
an
of
impossible.
guilt.
Oh
Yeah,
yes,
a lot of guilt
absolutely,
involved. Yeah, because you feel like,
absolutely.
whether it's, one life or however many, I've heard the stories. You feel like you've let down
Let
your
them down.
fellow,
Yep.
brother, sister, whatever. And
Yep.
yeah, it's and when you bring up the fact that you said your cousin, is that your cousin,
Mhm.
or who's it? Um,
Yes.
6 tours. That also tells us that, numbers wise, that we're struggling to keep the the amount of people available to do these, to be deployed and stuff. So when you hear about people, spending all of these, in this case 6, I've heard people dozens of tours, where you're going your months, maybe a year or so at a time.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and that's it's sad in a lot of ways, because of what this world, what people's religious beliefs are, to try to you know hurt and kill, destroy other people's faith. I mean, yeah, we're opening a can of worms with religion, but all right. Again, kudos to our veterans. Much love. Let's,
Yeah.
if you want, Tiff, let's go on and jump into our segments. Mike, introduce the guest of honor.
All right. So Christopher Bledsoe is a commercial pilot, and from 1986 to 2005, owned an award-winning construction business in Fayetteville, North Carolina. He was nominated as Businessman of the Year in 2003 by the National Republican Congressional Committee and was invited to President George Bush's inauguration. He is also a rescue scuba diver, and prior to his experience, was a noted hunter, on a record as having killed one of the largest bear in North Carolina. In 2007, Chris, his son Junior, and 3 of his subcontractors witnessed a series of sightings that were absolutely terrifying and unexplained. They were investigated by the organization MUFON and scientists from the space industry. Their experience was featured on the Discovery Channel's 2008 series UFOs Over Earth, the Fayetteville Incident. Chris currently lives in North Carolina with his wife, Yvonne, and their 4 children. He owns chickens, dogs, and keeps a large garden. He loves backpacking in nature. And this guy is an absolutely incredible person. I've really enjoyed getting to know him. So I would like to introduce our listeners to Chris Bledsoe. Thank you so much for coming on tonight. How are you?
I'm doing good, and thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure.
Well, would you like to maybe first describe the initial contact that you had with your son and your friends? Please set up the stage a little bit. You were at a lake, is this correct?
No. It was the Cape Fear River, which is a couple of miles away from down east of my home, and it's not a very big river. It's about 75 yards wide. Unless you're down around Wilmington, it actually starts in Raleigh, North Carolina. The river does, the river basin, and goes all the way to the Atlantic Ocean, which is a couple hundred miles of river, I guess, through Wilmington. And it gets pretty big down that way. But where we were, it's just a small river, which I grew up on, fishing and skiing and swimming and camping. And it was January the 8th of 2007, which I know today was Elvis Presley's birthday, of all crazy things, because as someone that saw the UFO Over Earth show after it came on TV, after it was released, this friend that I haven't seen since high school, she calls me and she's like, "Oh my God, I haven't seen you since high school, and I just got to tell you that I saw the same thing you did that night." And she said, and the reason I know it was the same thing, because she lives about a mile or less, probably by bird, probably a half a mile from her home to where we were fishing. But she said she and her daughter drove into the subdivision. Point East is the name of the subdivision. And as they pulled in the entrance, it's way out in the country kind of, but it's a nice, probably 150 homes out in the country and one nice subdivision. And she said when she pulled into the entrance to the subdivision, there was a UFO hovering above the trees, just treetop high. And it shot straight up into oblivion. And she said she looked at her daughter in just amazement. Both of them stared at each other and said, "Oh, my God, I guess Elvis has come home because today is his birthday." So that's how I'll always know it was Elvis's birthday.
Another Elvis sighting. Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, and that's something.
Yeah, here we are.
There was at least 7 or 8 more people that has called and shared experiences that night. Some of the investigators have interviewed a couple of them since then, and it's pretty interesting. People, that came forward. But it was a January day, the 8th of 2007. I was basically had just come through a real rough time of being sick with Crohn's disease. Mm-hmm. And had sold my company. My wife and I did. I was not able to run the thing or operate it because I was in bed for 2 solid years there. Every time I'd try to go to work, I was back at home. So my business was going south, and we struggled to put it up on the market, and it sold rather quickly. But my doctor told me, if you don't quit work, you're going to die, because it just made my disease worse. So we actually sold out in 2005, March, I think, or May, somewhere in there of 2005, because just before that, I came through a near-death experience. I had a doctor that was treating me, and my blood became toxic, and I actually came out of my body in the hospital, and I was laying there on the stretcher with a sheet over my whole body. I saw it all happen. I saw the doctors standing there with my wife, and long story short, I came through that and just wasn't able to work anymore at all. Just totally sick and was hating life, I guess you would say. Sold my home, moved out beside my father where I was raised, right near the river. And he encouraged me to get back into doing something, so I took a crew of men to the coast and had them working on a big house, and was just kind of overseeing, watching them, just basically resting. And the job took 4 months. It was over. We came back, and they wanted to celebrate. I was home, and I told them, when you get done, come pick up your checks. And they did, and said, "Let's go fishing. Let's celebrate. We've been gone 4 months." So Chris Jr. and I decided to go with them. I had the only 4-wheel drive truck, so they really wanted me to go. And we loaded up in my Ford pickup truck, 4-door. Chris Jr. and I picked those guys up at their home, which they lived a couple of miles away, right near the river. And away we went. About 2:30 in the day, we get down there. And if you can imagine a field, like a farmer's field, that you would drive across the field, a couple hundred yards across it, on a 2-rut, what we call a 2-rut dirt road, which is a farmer's road through the field. And when you get to the other side of the field, there the wood lines, the trees, the road continues down in the trees and dives down about 100 feet or more into the river bottom down. And down in there, the road dead ends into a little cul-de-sac, like an average half acre or more, grassy area. So we were down in there. We parked right near the river, 2:30. It was cool. I wasn't fishing, but the kids, well, Christopher was, and these 3 men, subcontractors, friends I've known, a couple of them, most of my life. And if you hear a little noise, it's because I'm in a hotel in Miami, so I'm trying to get by these folks for a second. I'm sorry. But so we actually make our, let me just a second here.
You're fine. We can edit that out, don't worry.
No, it's okay. It's just, you would never think this place would be this busy at night. So,
you're not getting that
I am.
massage right now, are you? You're not getting that massage yet, Chris. Okay.
No, that's
All right.
that's
I was
annoying.
actually joking about you getting a massage while doing the show. That was a joke. Right?
That's part of my rheumatoid arthritis treatment. I'll get that tomorrow. So that's
All
why
right,
I'm in
brother.
Miami doing this holistic healing. So long story short, we end up down there. These guys are starting to go the fish now. It's 3:00. They're situated. They're fishing. I feel like they're taken care of. So I'm kind of just hanging out, not fishing myself. I wasn't into it. I didn't let them know what I was thinking that day. Just hoping my son would have fun, and they seemed to be. So I actually, around 4:00 or 3:45, I actually left them on foot, walking further back into the forest, where the back of the cul-de-sac is big woods, river gullies, and a lot of wildlife. So I told them I'm gonna walk down in there and see if I hear anything or see anything, and I'll be back later. So I did. I sat down by a tree, didn't see anything. Heard something walking a bit in the woods, but never saw anything. So I came out of the forest to because the sun had gone down, and in the forest it got pretty dark all of a sudden. Didn't have a flashlight, and I made my way back out, and I guess it was about 4:30 or 4:45, and they're like, I asked them straight up, do you want to fish some more or do you want to go home? And they're like, well, we just enjoying ourselves. Let's fish a bit more. And I said, well, let's light a fire because it's going to get cold tonight. It's turning dark. So everybody laid their poles down and proceeded to gathering up dead wood all around this little acre grassy area. So within about 10 or 15 minutes, we had a huge pile of wood and a fire going right on the riverbank. And so I felt again that they were taken care of because I'm used to working people. I'm always organizing. They're having fun. They got a fire going. I feel they're safe. So I'm like, I'm going to walk up to the cornfield just before dark and sit down along the edge of the field and see if any wildlife comes out. Might see a deer or turkey. So I left on foot, 10 minutes to 5 o'clock. And it's only a quarter of a mile at the most walk up to that field from where I was. It's very muddy and ruts, like my truck just kind of wallows around in these deep muddy ruts as you go down through there. And the road turns. It has one turn. It parallels the river north-south, and then it turns due west. So as I start down this road, I hear something walking in the bushes beside me, and it was the leaves were crackly, and it was very quiet. Not a sound of anything. It was so quiet you could hear everything echo through that river valley, and that was kind of unnerving to me. I have to say, I never got much scared in the forest. You know, I used to hunt. I was a bear hunter. And I started at a young age, 6, 7 years old. I was shot point blank at 10 years old. I had a near-death experience from that. Nearly killed me. And actually did for a moment. But so I'm walking down this path. I hear these footsteps in the forest. I thought it was a deer. I stopped. I'm looking, trying to see it, couldn't see a thing. So I started walking again, and it starts walking again. That time I noticed it was 2 feet, not 4. So my hair stood up. I'm like, immediately I thought it was a turkey maybe. I thought, oh boy, maybe this is a turkey. So, but it didn't sound like it was too heavy-footed. So for 3 or 4 times in about 5 to 10 minutes, I stopped, actually got on my knees 3 times, trying to look under the shrub, the bushes, to see if I could see what that was walking in the forest. I know now what it was, and I'll get back to that later. So I make it halfway to where the road turns west, and the light from what sunlight's left, the sun had already set behind the trees, was coming down that path, and so I felt a bit better. And I'm looking way up a hill. I'm level with the river. I'm looking up 100 feet up, and the road, the light's way up there. So I start up that hill, and I'm watching every step I make because it's so muddy, and I'd look up and take a couple steps, and I'd look up, just meandering along. And I get about 2/3 of the way to the top of that hill, and I begin to get to where I could see what I thought was the setting sun. First time I looked at it, I didn't really think twice about it because it was the same color as the sun, same size when it sets in the afternoon. That golden orange, when you can look at it and it doesn't hurt your eyes, you can stare into it. That's what it appeared, size and color, but it was a lot closer and it was on fire. But when I first looked at it, it threw me off just so I didn't catch it right away. So I took a couple of more steps looking down, and I got on up a bit, and I thought, oh, my God, this is strange. I took another step or two, and my field of view widened, and then I noticed there were two of these things. And I'm still not to the top of the hill, right? So I'm not looking at the field. I'm looking at the tree line on the other side of the field. And there's these two objects that are hovering just above the trees on the far side of that field. And they're, like I say, the size of the sun, the color of that, but it looks like swirling fire going around and around these things, some sort of plasma. I've taken quite a few photos. I've put them out there on Facebook, a few. It's the same thing. My family's seen them with me, my daughter, a lot of people have. So I actually squatted down. I got fearful. I got frightened, and I squatted down and hid myself using the hill in front of me so they couldn't see me. I was really frightened. I knew that it wasn't something that I'm familiar with at all. I knew it was from somewhere else. And what I have to say here, the most important thing is to all this, and I've told this time and time again, and I will to the day I die, I was not a happy camper in those days. I was very sick. Had just gone through a doctor poisoning me, and the doctor actually died from an overdose. Put 110 patients in the hospital. I was one of them, and it basically I was starting over. At 46 years old, I'm praying as I'm walking along that day, Lord, take me. I don't want to live anymore. Or whoever's up there, help me. I'm crying out for help from some higher source, God, angels. I was a deacon in the Pentecostal Holiness Church, so I know what the fundamentalist sees, believes. I was there all my life. I'm married to a Pentecostal Holiness. My children, all of us, are very much deep-rooted into that. Well, something came, and that's what came. I can't tell you any different. All I know is I believe in my heart it came because I was praying, and that's just that. So long story short, I turn around and I look down the hill like I'm fixing to run. It was my first intention. I'm running. I'm squatting down. My body's turned back down the hill. I pop my head back up to see if they're still there, and there they are. I turn my body a little more in a stride to take off running, and the minute I do, up above me, over in that same direction, but up above me, this like a hole opens up, and a third one of these objects comes shooting out in a second. It was sitting beside the other two. Now there are three of them. Well, I knew immediately that they saw me. They knew I was there. I knew it. And I'm like, oh, my God. So I actually started, I was shivering. I hid in these what we call reeds, which are like fishing poles, that you would see in a swampy area. So I'm kind of pulled myself into that, kind of trying to hide. And the next thing I know, I'm running back to the fire. And when I get to the fire, I'm trotting really, not running because it's dark. I don't realize how dark it is, what time it is at that time. It was just 10 after 5 when I left on foot, going a quarter of a mile up the hill, which probably took 15 minutes, counting the times I stopped. So it wasn't even 5:30 when I was up there. The sun wasn't dark, but when I went back to the fire, I didn't realize it was pitch black dark, and I was having trouble getting back there. But when I got to the fire, to the fishing spot, these 3 men were standing there by the fire. They were no longer fishing, and they were looking at me as I come jogging up. And I'm like, oh my God, y'all won't believe what I just saw. And they looked at me and said, where in the world have you been? I said, what do you mean? I'm just up at the top of the hill. I saw these 3 UFOs. You won't ever believe it. This incredible thing I just saw. And they're like, no, where have you been? We've been looking you all night. So I said, I noticed Junior wasn't there, my son. He was just 17 years old. And they're like, I said, where's Christopher? And they said, he's been gone for 2 hours. We don't know where he's at. He's lost. We've been looking him. We've been looking you. We've been in the car. Somebody's been here at the fishing hole the whole time while the other 2 had my pickup truck because I'd left the keys in it. They had driven in and out of the place looking for me. Christopher went back in the forest where I had gone earlier that day at 4 o'clock, back in the back of the cul-de-sac. He made his way back in there, was going to look for his dad. And here's the weird thing. As he's standing back there at the back, just before he entered into the forest, he looks up the road where I walked out of there, going back to the cornfield. He looks up that road where I heard these noises early on, and he sees these 2 red lights about 3 feet off the ground. He calls them orbs, red orbs. They're 3 feet high off the ground, about big as a softball maybe. And he sees them go across the road. Well, it scares him. So he squats down and try to, got behind some bushes. And then they come back out of the forest, back out on the road, and they start towards him. And here they come from 100 yards away. And they got closer and closer, and the closer they got, the more he hid himself. And he backed himself up under these shrub bushes, a good 5-10 feet in there. And when they got so close to him, they became visible. And there were these 2 little beings that were about 3 feet tall. They had these red goggles they were wearing over their eyes, like swimmer's goggles. Kind of a large head, skinny, spindly little body, and they appeared to glow like a light bulb. And they could. The weird thing is, they could go invisible into like this stealth mode, like a chameleon, like the Predator movie you'd see. These things where they're sitting in a tree and they're invisible. They could do that. You could still see their eyes even when they did that. So
one of my all-time favorite movies, by the way. One of my all-time favorite movies, by the way.
Okay. Yeah, mine
That's
too.
amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what he was seeing, and they were looking at him. They were 10, 15 feet away from him the whole time. He was there. He was paralyzed. One was always looking, and when they look at him, he couldn't scream, he couldn't move. He was just terrified. And the other was crawling around on his hands and knees, picking up bottles, is what he described, and would shake them and throw them back on the ground. They were curious, little kids. And so I'm shouting out, Christopher, where are you? And he wouldn't answer, and he wouldn't answer. And I start my way back into the forest, and I get in there a good 5 feet, and I hear him. And he comes up from under these bushes, and he's in panic. He's in shock, and he's crying, and where have you been, Dad? Where have you been? Why'd you leave me? And I'm excited. I just saw 3 UFOs. I've been gone in my thought 20 minutes. That's it, max. Nobody could tell me I had been gone longer than that. Well, here it is, 10:30 now at night, and I'd been gone 4.5 hours, the best we can tell. Christopher here, my son, he's in shock. He's telling me there's these aliens that were all around him on the ground playing, had him pinned down, and I don't know what to think. So I grab him by the arm, and I lead him back over to the fire, a good 50 or 70 yards away, right down on the riverbank, where these 3 men are no longer fishing. They're standing there. Now, their poles are still leaning on these sticks, these homemade sticks with a V that they had stuck in the mud, and they're just standing there warming themselves. And nobody's really saying anything. And as I'm leading him back up to the fire, their eyes are big as saucers. They're quiet. Christopher's upset visibly. They're freaking out now because he's talking aliens and I'm talking UFOs. And I got him there, and within 5 minutes maybe of us kind of trying to figure out what just happened, one of the guys shouted, "Look!" And we all look up, and what it looked like, Tiffany, was if you see Venus before it sets in the afternoon when it says its very brightest, real brilliant star. There were 8 or 9 of these things up there, and the reason I say 8 or 9, I counted what I thought was between 8 and 9. The others counted more or less, but we were all in the same area. Figured, I think David saw one more than the rest. It went up the river, he said. Well, long story short, these things just appeared above us, like they just came on, and they started zooming all around above us. They went away from each other. They were first kind of together. They flew way out. They were way up there. They came back together, and then they went back apart, and then 3 of them came all the way to the ground and landed on the other side of the river in front of us. Landed, and they were brilliant white. I mean, like welder's lights, like a star at its brightest star you'll see. And these things landed, they were pulsating 75 yards as wide as the river is, and they were on the other side of it, just in the trees. So you can imagine at that moment, pandemonium sets in. We all ran to the truck, dove in my truck, left fishing poles, coolers, everything there, sitting right where it was. I went about to touch it. As I'm trying to get out of there with this pickup truck, these men, 5 of us in there, they're beating on the back of my seats, shouting, let's go, screaming. Everybody was in fear. And one of them said that there was this being that came out of the forest right where Christopher was, where I found him. And undoubtedly the things had hidden when I walked back up there and hadn't left yet. Came out of the forest and was chasing the truck on all 4s, running like an antelope would run, kind of on all 4s, front 2, back 2 legs, springing. It was very fast, and they're shouting for me to go faster. I couldn't go any faster. The truck's just in mud up, deep ruts. And as we made it up that hill, I was able to gun it. And the truck, I felt like I was on the movie The Streets of San Francisco. I felt like I was airborne when I come over that hill. And they were saying this thing was almost to grab the tailgate as we went over the hill, but vanished. When we got to the top of that hill, I slammed on brakes because the same 3 objects that were there when I walked up there at 5 o'clock or 5:15 were still there. 2 of them, the orange ones, were still hovering above the trees, right where they were originally. But this 3rd one that shot down and set orange like the other 2 now was the shape of an egg or a football and was setting about 5 feet off the ground and about 150 yards in front of my truck between me and the highway. So we sat there for a good 5 or more minutes doing a standoff. We couldn't leave. We had 3 landed behind us on the riverbank. We had 3 in front of us. And this thing that was chasing the truck had disappeared, and everybody was freaking out bad. We thought we were being invaded. We thought the world was coming to an end. I mean, there was a lot of emotion going on, I have to tell you. And so there was a small mobile home in the back of the field at that time, and there were 2 cars there. So I drove across the road, across this dirt road, onto another dirt road in the back of this field, and pulled up to this mobile home because I didn't have a cell phone. I got rid of it at that time because I had about 400 houses under warranty where I sold my company, and people were stressing me to death. So I had gotten rid of everything that could cause me to be sick. One was a cell phone. And so nobody had a phone. We had no way of telling them. And so we pulled up with intention to this house to see if somebody could call and find out what was going on, and if they were, could see this with us, had a camera. And one of the guys jumped out, knocked on the door. The storm door was open, or the door was open, and only the storm door was closed. You could see the TV playing through the front door. and nobody would answer the door. It was like they wasn't there. But they went back a day or two later to get our rod and reels and stopped and asked those people. And they said, yeah, we were there the whole night. So something weird went on there. A lot of the investigators know about that.
So they were probably turned off like a lot of the spouses are.
Yeah, definitely something.
That's something that we have a lot of comments about is that a lot of the spouses during abductions don't believe because they're like deactivated. They sleep through it. So
stop them.
Maybe did it happen? Did it sound like something like that?
That's exactly what it was like, and that's what all the other investigators are saying the same thing. They just turned them off somehow. Their door was open, their TV was playing. You could watch it through the front door. And it's a little teeny mobile home, 10 by 60 with 2 cars in the yard, and nobody would come. So after that, nobody came to the door. I backed the truck back out across their yard, out back to this dirt road, this 2-rut road. I'm facing the main highway, and this craft, this football, this egg with this light going around, it looks like, these like spikes almost, like blades of light. And if you want to see a real description of this thing, there's on YouTube, you can Google YouTube I-10, Interstate 10 UFO. That's the real thing. You know it for sure? That's what was there. Same kind of thing. Looked just like it, except I could see it. It was, it wasn't in the forest. It was in front of all 5 of us. So I back out. I'm facing this thing. It's sitting in the road. All of a sudden, 3 gunshots happen. MUFON knows about it. We reported it. I don't know if they ever found out anybody shooting at it, but for some reason, somebody was shooting, and when they did, we all heard it. It's sideways to us, an egg, like an egg or a football, sideways to us. It turns, it rotates. It's only 5 feet off the ground, and it points straight at us, and here it comes down the path to us across that field. And oh my Lord, we were freaking out bad then, and it gets closer and closer until it starts getting a little altitude. And by the time it gets to us, it barely cleared the trees above my truck. It went straight over the top of the truck. I opened the sunroof, and I could have shot it with a homemade slingshot and hit this thing as it went over, totally silent. And once it got past us out over the river, it shot off like it was fired out of a cannon, just to the north. It was like, boom, it was gone. And actually someone took a photo that night down in Benson of the same thing. So there was a lot of reports that happened during that time. MUFON has a photo of it because they shared it with me. So I hit the gas, and away we went. These 2 orange things are still over the trees. We drove straight at them and took a right when we hit the highway and started home. These guys were fighting who gets to go home first. And actually the biggest guy, we had to go out of the way 4 or 5 miles to drop him off first because he won the argument. I mean, and there were other lights in the sky tracking my truck. There was an area that these guys, we all call the cut down, which was a forest that had been timbered out. And there's 200 acres in there, and it was full of lights. There was something on the ground and, back off the road, and just enough to keep us scared. Didn't see what it was, but it was in there. And we probably saw between 12 and 15 objects that night, between what was flying around, 8 or 9 flying around, 3 landing, 3 was on the road in front. It was just a lot of stuff happening. So as we're heading to drop these 3 guys off, and I'm going to tell this because it's important. I don't say a lot about it, but I'm going to. So on the way, there's this big high-tension power line. And it's one of those that are like, you got these 3 wires that droop between these double poles, and they go a long ways, right? A huge, big power line. So as we go under this power line, it's in a real sharp curve, what we call a dead man's curve. And as we start into this curve, there is this huge thing hovering right over top of the power line, 20 feet above it. This black, I couldn't tell you what color other than it looked black because it was dark at night. It had a row of lights down the back, the side we were looking at. It was 200 feet away from us, 20 feet above this power line. So it won't quite over the road. It was 200 feet from the road. The road goes under the power line. It just so happened that in 1980. I think it was 82. My first wife was killed underneath that power line right there. I found her like in 2 days of being our wedding anniversary. I was out of town for all day hunting with my father, and I came home going down that long road. And when I went around that curve, I saw a car laying up on its side underneath that power line. And I stopped and got out, and I didn't know whose car it was. It was dark, and I just come in from being 2 hours away on the coast, hunting islands. We turned dogs loose on islands and run deer. And surprised me to see this car, and I stumbled over her. She was thrown out of the car, and she died in my arms right there, 2 days before our first year anniversary. And the weird thing was, Tiffany, is when we went under that power line and that craft was sitting there, I stopped. I tried to stop. I wanted to stop. I wanted to get out, but they weren't having anything to do with it. I was no longer really frightened about all this stuff. They were the ones that were frightened. That's the weird thing. I couldn't remember what happened to me, but I wasn't frightened, but they were. But the whole thing flashed back, everything. The whole death, the whole thing with her, and there was a connection made between that object and what happened there at that time.
Wow.
Yes, that's part of it. And a lot of people know about this, other folks that I studied with and some Hollywood people that's been interested.
we go back to the spiritual element of these experiences, and maybe that was your sign that they know, and maybe they were curious as to why it would affect you.
Well, remember, like I said, I was praying, God help me, take me. Yeah. I needed relief, whatever, and they came. I know they answered. I know they came because I was praying. And I know to this day, I've demonstrated it. I have proof of it. I have the photos. I have video. And this is just not unknown to you and a lot of people, that it still happens. And a lot of people, even Colonel John Alexander will tell you, he was with me on the river this past Christmas or around October, and standing in the same place at the gate. And I said, John, they're here. They're above us. And 15 seconds later, it appeared above us. And that was the second UFO he'd ever seen. And this time was unlike any, because I told him it was there, and it was an experience. So, and it's happened to quite a few people. So what I'm saying is, I see this thing as somehow connected to our thoughts. A friend from the space industry said, oh, yeah, you got a chip in your chest somewhere. Well, maybe so, but how did I get one before? I don't know. I just think it's spiritual. I know it's spiritual, but I'm not saying there's not, other stuff out there. I can only speak for me and what happened to this group. But so we make it home.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So we dropped these three guys, I'm sorry. We dropped them off. And Chris Jr. and I get home, and he is actually running through the house in panic. I'm dealing with a child now that is completely in shock from what had just happened. And he's just been on the ground with these beings from another world, which some would call ET, some would call angels. I don't know what to call them. I just know they're there, and they seem to respond in a spiritual way. But they scared him, right? So he's running through the house, turning all the lights on in every room, and he'd lock the door. He'd go in the bedroom, his sister's bedroom. My wife and the other three kids were not at home. They were away with her mother. So it's just he and I. And he'd run in their room, 5-bedroom house. He'd run in the room, lock the door, pull the curtain down, turn the light on, and lock the door. Even the bathrooms, he did the same. Turned all the outside floodlights on. I'm in there in my little man cave trying to find the news channel, if it's on the news, trying to find out if it's an invasion happening. We thought the end of the world was coming. I just knew it would be all over the television. I'm not finding anything, just normal, every night news. And he comes running in there after he gets the house locked down. You found anything, Dad? I said, no, son. This is really strange. So about that time, our hunting dogs. My father lives next door. He's deceased now. But he has a kennel that's still there, and there's still about 15 dogs out there. My nephew, or my first cousin, just took them over, hunting dogs. I don't hunt anymore, but he still does, and he keeps those same dogs in that kennel. So all these dogs start really, I hear this noise come over. It sounded like a helicopter for a minute, which is, I immediately thought it was Fort Bragg was heading to the river because it was heading in that direction. But it was a weird sound. It was more like a whoom, 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 like a slowing down washing machine, kind of, when it's on a spin cycle. Just kind of a vibration like it was slowing down. So I hear this go over, and then all of a sudden the dogs, 15 of them, start barking. And they're barking like, I see something, I don't know what it is. They were scared to death. And I know dogs very good. So I was raised with them, and I knew that something was scaring them, the way they sounded. And I looked at Christopher. He looks at me, and first thing I thought was, somebody is breaking in Dad's garage. Dad lives right beside me. We live on 6 acres right at it together. Kind of was out in the country more now than it is. And behind his house, he has this garage that's right beside the dog kennel. So all I can imagine is their dogs have seen somebody breaking in his boathouse where he keeps his tools that we do together, tools, boats, fishing pole. So I look at Christopher and I said, I'm going to go see who's breaking in his garage. And he's like, no, Dad, please don't go outside. So I walk up to the back door, it's full glass, and out the door is my red Chesapeake Bay Retriever, Rosie. She's standing on the back steps. Her hair is standing up, 110-pound dog. And she'd look up at me and point back toward the dog kennel, which is 100 yards away in the forest. And all you could do is hear them. You couldn't see them. They're back in the woods barking, barking, barking. And so I finally convinced him to hang on to me, and we'd use the darkness, not take a flashlight, and hide. Don't turn the light on. They won't see us. So we'll sneak back in there and keep the dog. This Chesapeake would really bite somebody. So I said, look, she'll protect us. So we ease our way, following her. She runs ahead of us. And when we caught up with her, she was there at the kennel. And the crazy thing was they were looking further. They were looking behind the kennel into the forest, not towards the storage room. So I'm whispering to Christopher, all these dogs are deafening sound. All of them are barking. All of them. Rosie too. Every breath into the woods. And I'm perplexed. He's scared. I'm nervous. And I'm whispering. I said, look, I'm going to send her in on whatever's in there. I thought maybe a bear had wandered in at that moment. So I couldn't imagine a person running back in the woods. They would have hit the highway and gone. So I said, maybe we can send her in and run back out to our yard and go to the back of the property and run up to the corner and hide behind a tree and see if she pushes anything out of the forest. Remember, I hunted dogs all my life. I know how to stay ahead of them. Well, I used to. So I bumped her on the rear with my foot, and I said, get them, Rose. And she dove in the woods, and away we went running. Christopher had me by the back of the shirt. And I actually run so hard because we had a short little head of woods there. These things can really move fast, so I had to go fast as I could to get ahead of them. And when we got to the grassy area, Christopher turned loose. I thought I pulled away from him and maybe he was still behind me. And instead, he had enough. He turned loose and went towards the house, but I didn't know it. So I run all the way to the back of the property and run up to this big old giant oak tree, and I'm out of breath. Run up and stop myself. Being as quiet as I can, I ran and used my hands to stop myself against this tree, right on the edge of the forest. And I'm catching my breath, and I turn around all at the same time to see if he's coming on up behind me. Here's Rosie coming, barking every breath. All the other dogs are barking. She's coming at me. I look behind, and instead of Christopher standing there, there's one of these little tiny beings that he spoke about on the river. It's standing 3 feet, 4 feet. I could have reached out and touched it with my hand, and I've been told, good thing I didn't, because it would probably killed me. So I got my back to it, right, and I'm looking over my shoulder, and it's behind me. So I turned around and put my back to the tree, and I faced it, and I said, I have screwed up. That's the first thing I said. I'm sorry I've screwed up. I don't mean you no harm. And at that moment, it spoke to me. not verbally, but I heard it just like you're hearing me, but I didn't see its mouth move. And it said, "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help you." And it was glowing like a light bulb, like the color of the moon on a full moon when it's white, that soft white. It had a triangle like a pyramid from the Egypt on its chest, a dark triangle, and it had red glowing eyes, not eyes, but goggles like that protruded out like little swimmer's goggles. And it was glowing. And it stood there, its hands to its side. I was just, oh my God, is all I could think. And Rosie's getting closer and closer. And about that time, she comes out of the woods. And at the same time, this thing vanishes, just disappears right in front of me. And of course, Rosie ran on another out of hearing. She kept going. So I figured it ran on and she ran behind it. And she actually died right after that. She got too close to it undoubtedly. And she died. And North Carolina State University. Yeah,
your
the dog
died right after?
Yeah. North Carolina State University studied her and said they didn't check for radiation, but they didn't know to. But they said it was something on that order of like a neurological thing. She'd walk along and fall over. It said we can't figure out what's wrong with her other than something sucked her life away. Yeah, that happened.
That's
so
horrible.
I took off running, jogging back to the house, not telling Christopher what I just saw because he's shocked enough, right? I'm scared to tell him anymore, and I'm in shock. But I wasn't scared, Tiffany, because the way it spoke to me, I was really actually happy because that's when I knew then when I told MUFON there were angels. That's what I said. Because of my fundamentalist belief, because of going to church all my life and studying about this and Ezekiel's will within the will, that's what it all was to me, like an angel. But
I gotta jump in here. Because with the fact that you say angels, I want to clarify. You say angels.
Okay.
Do you say it in a religious sense, like biblical angels? Because it's always,
it's all the same, Kevin.
Alien.
The word.
Say it again.
The word angel. The word angel is a word of divine origin. Let's just say the Bible. We look at it as a history book, and they spoke about the same flipping thing that it's not new today. What's flying around up there now? They saw them then, and they called them angels. What does that mean? I don't know. Today, the new age is they're beings, they're ETs, they're star brothers, star sisters, star people, hybrids, everything in the book. They got all kinds of names for them. Because all I know is they were strange-looking creatures, beings with amazing powers and technology, and they came because of prayer. That's my whole thought about the thing. So that's what I mean by angel. I mean by they came to help, not to kill me, not to do a anal probe or any of that stuff. It was, I'm sorry, the whole place is trying to get busy at this moment.
Well, Chris, we've actually
it must have been the anal probe. It must have been the anal probe comment that got him busy.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we've talked about this a lot, though. When it comes to descriptive terms for these types of beings, we get caught up in the terminology, and it's all just a random collection of words that we've been exposed to for hundreds of years. But I feel like we're all still talking about similar things.
Same
thing.
Same thing.
So what you're describing are visitations that have been going on for thousands of years.
There you go. That's all I'm saying.
But not everybody else has been open to asking for help. Not everybody. Maybe, people pray, but not everybody sees God. Do
you know why do you know why that is, Tiffany? Because the people who pray. Here's my take: the people who pray. You, Chris, have this connection. Chris's personal experience, what he's been sharing with us. Tiffany, your experiences, your prayers are, you are talking to the quote unquote angels. I can pray, but for me, prayer doesn't do anything for me because I don't have that connection that you all have.
I disagree with that. I don't believe that, because I do think that prayer should be part of your daily lives in a way that you feel comfortable. We don't have to sit here and talk religion explicitly. But I do feel like Chris and I have talked about this before. I do think that it's a supernatural, it's a paranormal, it is a spiritual process.
I'm with you.
And those of us who are more elevated, and those of us who are more willing to accept those responsibilities are maybe more willing to hear the response.
Maybe what it is, Tiffany, is that you and Chris should include me in your prayers. I wonder.
I pray for you every night, Kevin.
No, I'm not. It sounds like I'm joking, but I'm not. I'm thinking, if you have this connection, give a shout out to me, Queen, whoever, and let's. I hope the case is that there is that some type of divine, or or there's angels out there.
There's not a hope. There is.
Okay. Well, for me, there's more of a hope. For you, you've been there and done that. I've not had any type of paranormal experience. You guys have, and there's a reason why. And maybe the thing is that the reality is that the Chris's and Tiffany's of the world have to say, you know what? There is a reason that in this case, you two had that connection. So let's take it up a notch.
Definitely. There's definitely a connection.
There is a connection, Chris, but let's, the thing is that until this process really became solidified in my mind, and I started having conscious experiences, and these are experiences that need no hypnosis. No, it's absolutely in your face. These experiences are real. It's happening.
Exactly.
There are some people who are experiencing things that the average person just can't explain. But you know what? I just lost my train of thought. So until I got in contact with Chris, my belief in religion had sort of dwindled. And after these experiences started to really solidify, and it brought me back to my faith. And it's not a faith that is led by man. It's a faith that is more spiritual and more internal. And that's what I think it's important. You have to have something to believe in. And once you gain that faith back, there's a reason why we have guardian angels, guardian beings. They are here to guide and help us. But Chris, can you explain a little bit more about how these visitations have helped you physically with your Crohn's and everything?
Well, after that night, I wasn't sick any longer. Period.
Like ever?
And I was,
you're
like ever.
Free and
now,
clear.
I have
really? Okay.
Yeah, I have rheumatoid arthritis now that I deal with, but
Me too.
it's not like threatening. At least I don't think so. Maybe the meds I'm taking are, and I'm believing they're going to take that away. In fact, I'm going to step out on a limb and say that it's going to go away, because I just now started asking them to help me with this, and they're responding. I see them. I take photos of them. I have video of them. I have audio of them, and everybody knows this. Not just Tiffany, but high-level people from NASA, people from the government. They see it. They know it. They've seen it, the videos, the audio, and all this, and it's real. Regardless of what anybody wants to say, I have proven it to Dr. Colonel John Alexander, United States Department of Defense, non-lethal weapons guy. He will tell you, he was there with me. I told him when it would come, and it did. So I'm telling you, it's connected to somehow spiritually. These beings are. I'm not saying they're all good. I can't answer that. There could be some bad ones out there. In fact, there might be some out there trying to figure out how to cook Homo sapiens up real good. I don't know. There's probably both good and evil, light and dark. I'm not going to say there's not. But my experience has been positive, benevolent. I feel them when they're near. I just know it. And the orbs, people try to want to discount an orb, right? I put pictures out there of orbs with real faces, with real ET. Not something you got to wonder about. Something you're going to look at. It's in your face. There it is. You cannot debunk it. Nobody can. Period. And they're connected to the UFO. I see the craft fly over, appear, or so, like just recently, a friend of mine from Pennsylvania was standing there with me named Foxy, and we hear this boom, like a sonic boom, and the thing appears right above us and comes flying across the sky very slowly. It takes 2 minutes to cross my little yard, that slow and low. Well, I see this kind of thing, and then a few minutes the orbs appear, and you see them visibly. Not all, but other people, witnesses with me, see them and receive blessings from this. And I won't say no more about that, but a lot of people have come seeking healing. And some people have found that.
Yeah, Chris, I asked Tiffany why. I guess the what I was hearing is that you're not one who's been so forthcoming in sharing your stories and your experiences and what it's done for you. And my understanding is that there's a reason. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, it's not about me. It's about the world.
Right.
I don't look at it as me.
Okay, but it is your story. Right. But it is your story and your experience. Yeah. But has you not so much sharing your story, that's not necessarily been your decision. That's my understanding.
No, it has. No.
Okay.
It has.
Okay.
I can tell you, I can say this freely, and I'll say it. I'll say it freely. I've heard a lot of horror stories about people in the UFO world talking about helicopters. So there's helicopters. There's a black helicopter. There's men in black. There's all this and all that. Well, for me, not so.
Okay.
I see helicopters all the time. Fort Bragg's full of them. If they want to find you, they're not going to waste their money on a helicopter hovering over your house. They'll come to your door. Okay. I have met people from NASA. I have met people from the government. I have met people from all parts of it. And they've been the nicest people. Nobody's never threatened me. Nobody's never told me not to talk about it. In fact, I've asked them, should I put these pictures on Facebook? If you tell me to stop, I will. And they're like, we don't own this. Nobody owns this. You understand? It's not what we think. The government doesn't know all of what we think. I'm sure they know they're there. They probably shot at one and then shot back. Who knows? But as far as all that other stuff, it doesn't compute with me. My experience with our country, I'm very much a patriot. I believe in the country and the government and how it works. And I've met some very nice people. It's been very nice. Never a threat.
Okay.
I'm just a private person. I have 4 children and a wife, and my kids had the worst thing in the world I ever did. I guess to them was to report this thing with MUFON and then make that show with Discovery, because it wasn't long after that everybody started making fun of my kids, all my children. 9 years old, 10 years old, my little girl come home crying because the teachers made fun of them or the kids made fun of them. So I've lived with that crap for 10 years and nobody to help. I couldn't call any support. You hear about all these support groups, poppycock. Nobody comes to support nothing. And how are they going to support me when they don't know what the heck it is? You see? So it's like a big old hole that nobody knows what to deal with. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just saying. And the worse it got, the harder my resolve became. the more they would come. The beings never stopped. There's a lot more to it. There's a female part to it, a deity, a lady, a shining, glowing lady.
That's what I was getting ready to ask. That's the story I want to hear. That's the one I wanted to ask about, is the shining lady. Let's hear a little bit about this wonderful entity.
Well, in 2012, this is when the Mayan calendar thing is connected somehow. It was around Easter of 2012. Okay, so 5 years had gone by, which I called the 5 years of darkness, basically. From 2007 to 2012, I wasn't talking with anyone. I wasn't doing any interviews, no radio, no nothing. A lot of people were calling. I did the show with Discovery, and during that time wished I hadn't, because of the backlash to my family and my children, and people making fun. And I lost every friend I had, family members. The church ostracized me. You can't come back to church unless you agree they're demons. They come out with their holy water. So that was the end of my church days, after being a deacon in the Pentecostal church, right? So it's not been an easy road. So 2012, I have these guardians, I call them, these 7-foot-tall beings, which are the parents of the little teeny ones, flying around in eggs, landing in my yard. I have these pictures, these imprints. Norm Gagnon from MUFON, he saw the imprints where they landed. He was the first investigator, one of them. First star team case for MUFON was my case, our case. And so here it is, 2012. I am full of, I don't know how to say it best other than, in a world alone, and a paranormal world. I'm seeing this stuff every week. My family's seeing it, beings in the house, shadow people walking through the house, a flash of light, and here's this thing disappears. It walks out of the wall, 2 of them at the time. My wife's like, oh my God, the kids seeing it, and stuff turning over, and lights hovering over the house, and just above the trees. And so all this, I'm really in this place where I didn't know where to turn, and they're telling me the whole time to tell what I know, and I would refuse. They told me that they were what we would call angels from the Bible. They didn't say we are angels. They just said we are what you would call angels from your Bible. I refused to believe it. Although I'm better, I'm not sick. They came because of prayer. I'm going through this in my thoughts the whole time and rationalizing all this, and I just couldn't get it. So in 2012, at 3 o'clock in the morning, right around Easter, I hear this voice in the middle of the night. Woke me up out of my sleep. It said, arise, in a real deep, manly voice. I mean deep, like deep, deep. And it being Easter, my wife was up in the front part of the house. We had a 5-bedroom house. My daughter, 3 boys and a girl, and the boys had all their friends over. And so there's a whole lot of little boys at the house, and Emmy's up there by herself. So my wife's hanging out, sleeping with her, kind of playing old sergeant, right, keeping guard. So I'm in there asleep, 3 in the morning. I hear this voice. I sat up in my bed. I knew somebody was in there. I'm used to them coming that way. And I looked straight over at the clock. It said 3 a.m. And there they stood. There were 5 of these beings standing at the wall, just away from the foot of the bed. And they tell me to get up and get dressed, come with me. So I'll come with them. So I got up. I put my clothes on. I was in my underclothes. I put my shoes, socks, pants, shirt, everything on, and I walk out the back door, kind of like in a alpha state, you might say, with them, out to the back forest, out to the dog kennel, and they're talking to each other. I hear them, but they're not talking to me. I'm just following, not afraid. I'd seen them many times. So about that time, one of them reaches down and picks up this object from the ground. I don't know if they placed it there or where it came from, but it was like a pack of sausage, you might say, a tube, a little round tube, 6 or 8 inches long, and it was gray velvet look. The feel was like a velvety feel. They handed it to me and looked at me and said, this is yours, you must keep. And immediately it felt like a sand spur, like it was pricking me. and was uncomfortable. Like, I thought maybe it was going to bite me. I didn't know what it was. When they handed it to me, it freaked me out. So I dropped it on the ground, and they looked at me and said, "No, you've got to keep this. You must keep this. Do not lose it." So I reached down, bent over to pick it up, and when I stood back up, it in my hands, I'm juggling this thing, they disappeared on me. They're nowhere in sight. So here I am alone out by the dog kennel with this thing, and it's uncomfortable to hold. I don't know what it is. I just opened up one of the dog kennels and set it in there and closed the door thinking, well, if it sprouts legs, it can't run away. It'll be safe in there. The minute I did that, this wind, like a breeze, hurricane type shot of air, real hard wind came out of the forest, and I noticed the trees disappeared. A hole opened up, a black portal. The wind came out of that portal, blew me over, and as I'm going backwards to my back, all the way over, I landed on my back in the leaves. This big cow ran me over. A cow, a bull, a black 1,500-pound black bull came out of a hole, ran me over, landed on my back, rolled over to my stomach. I'm trying to get up to run. I'm thinking it's coming back. And as I pushed myself up to my knees, the whole place was lit up. It's no longer a cow there. There's a woman there, a lady. And she's about 5 feet tall at the tallest. She has golden hair. She's wearing a white dress that looked Roman style, and it went from her neck to her toes. Only the tops of her feet were showing, and then she was barefooted. The sleeves were down to her hands. She was totally covered and had a collar, her neck was buttoned up around her neck. She had golden, translucent hair, and her feet were 3 feet off the ground. She was floating, just out of my reach, 6 feet from me, and I'm on my knees, right? And she's there looking down at me, and she just looked so sad, but scared me. The power from her scared me, and just words cannot describe. Her dress was white with sparkles in it like the stars, millions of tiny little stars, and her dress shimmered. It had rolls in it like a Roman style dress. And she looked at me and she said, "This is your burden. You must bear." That's the word she used. And she told me some other things, quite a few things. And I've told this. I haven't told it to a lot of people, all of what she said, because it's not been the right time, some of it. I've shared a lot of it with certain people, but, I have to reserve telling it all right now. But it was about telling the world what it is that I know, basically. She told me that there were people in this world making prophecy come true, the end of the world stuff. They wanted to see it happen, and that the truth was going to come about the UFO. She said the word apocalypse in the Bible was to reveal that which has been hidden, the truth about other life. That's what she told me. And that it could not be told a lie. It had to be a balance. We could not scare the people. It's okay to tell it. We need to tell it. So maybe us humans can evolve and quit killing each other over a belief. Think about all the wars. We shoot each other over whose God is better than the other's God.
Yeah, every war is ultimately about religion.
Well, there you go. And this is my experience with her. This is some of what she told me, and this is where I'm at. And I've shared that with the highest, most prominent PhDs in the world, from the Vatican, from all over. They've come to study, promise you. And a lot of people take her very serious. Don't think they don't. Even folks within our country, is all I can say, take the lady very seriously. She's been around forever.
So, okay, I think it's time for, we have a few listeners who have some questions for you. And
sure.
We're going to get to the listeners who are on the phone first, and then we'll get to some messages, okay? So the first person is, let's see, actually, you know what? Did you see Ken's?
He dropped.
Let's see. Oh, he did? Okay. Hold on one second.
Is Colleen going to ask? Yeah.
Colleen.
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 Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You had a situation that happened the other night. Can you explain your situation?
Let me get out of the bedroom. I don't want to wake up my husband. Okay. I was sitting on a couch in the evening and, on a chair and watching TV, and I thought I heard what was a pop. And, of course, Kevin knows that, between Tiffany and I and the family, different weird things happen. I try to scientifically figure out what they are, which this one I can't again.
You people are weird, but go ahead.
Well, I can't figure it out.
In a loving way. I say that with all due respect.
Don't know if it's a gift. Don't know. I don't know what it is.
I'm jealous.
You know how I try to
jealous.
reason it out. Well, don't be. But anyway, I thought what I heard was a pop, like a breaker pop. But my breakers, I've got a pretty good sized house and they're in the basement, so there's no way I could hear a pop. Well, anyway, and I kind of saw out of the side, the peripheral vision of my right eye, what seemed to be a fireball, like, as crazy as it sounds, maybe 6 inches, 8 inches in diameter, and it just flew across my room.
Sure.
Now, as crazy as it is, I know it. I saw it. I don't know what it was. It was another situation of maybe something happened in my eyeball. Maybe it was some kind of outlet. I looked at all my outlets. I have quite a few in this room, including some in the floor and the wooden floors. Everything looks fine. The lights are working. And I told Tiffany about it. Of course, Tiffany's going, uh-huh. And my husband just looked at me. I told him about it, and he always says, I can't explain it. So, I don't know what it could be. I know what I saw. There's nothing burned in here. Outlets.
Wow.
Everything's fine. I just don't. And it was probably like 12, 14 inches off the ground. It just went across, like, this is a good-sized room, and it just went across the floor. Now, I have no idea what it was.
Wow.
I keep thinking, am I losing my mind? I don't think so. I guess it could be, but is it something like something wrong in my eye or eyes? I don't know.
Something wrong with your eyes doesn't explain other fireballs shooting across the sky that you've seen.
No, and Carl did see. I told him about one in Florida, and then a few days later, another one went by, and he saw it, and he says, I saw it, I don't know what it was. And the weird thing about the one in Florida was it went horizontal also, but it was huge, and I did like somewhat what he did. I told Carl, we're going to see that in the news. We're by a few Air Force bases. It's going to be not a single word, nothing on Facebook, nothing in the media, nothing on the TV, but we both saw it, and it's very...
it was just right, exactly, right. You're the chosen one. You're the chosen one.
No, I don't know what it is. I mean, like I said, I try to figure out. I don't know anything about meteors, and what's funny too is I've told Tiffany. I just texted her while she was on the phone with you, where I am situated at this house. I just have a newly built home. There's a lot of open sky, and I see a lot of what I call shooting stars, which is very interesting to me because my whole life has gone by and I've only seen a few. And here at this new house, I see quite a few. It is the oddest thing.
And some of them have been green and yellow.
One was green, and there was the University of Louisville down here at our amphitheater. Tiffany was there.
The astronomy club.
We invited Tiffany's. She's got a friend from when she was a little girl that's an attorney, and we've got probably, I don't know how many people, 150, 100, I don't know.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I don't know how to judge a crowd. But the funny thing was that the U of L director, University of Louisville director for the astronomy club, everybody was just, when that, what I call a shooting star, went, it looked like it went from vertically from up in the sky to the ground. It was a green color, and everybody just kind of sat there, kind of started giggling, and he said, we really planned that. And of course he said, no, we really didn't. Nobody had any idea. Of course they start trying to explain what they thought it was from, I guess, their point of view, from educating us because we were there with the astronomy club. But we have strange things happen, and I have no idea with the fireball.
Right, but fireballs and orbs. I wonder if there's a difference between fireballs and orbs. What do you think, Chris?
Well, definitely. There's a smart old friend of mine. He called me tonight. His name is on a monument in Titusville, Florida, from NASA. There's what they call ball lightning, which is very, very, very rare. I've never seen anything like it. And then there are these orbs, and these orbs are connected to the UFO. These beings can step right out of those orbs. I have video calling of that happening. I've shared. In fact, you can share that, Tiffany, with these Indians chanting right at the tree, and this rotating orb appears, and then a flash of light, and a 6-7 foot being steps out of the orb and stands there a second, and then moves off screen. It did that because it wanted us to see it. It allowed me to video it. But we see these things. They appear. They're beings, and they can be the craft as well. I've seen them be 5 and 6 foot big, like a little egg, 6 foot long egg, floating in the backyard, or to a 4 foot around, or even the size of a firefly, and then they get bigger. You remember the Foo Fighters in World War II?
Mm-hmm.
An old friend of mine I was telling you about from the space industry said, you can't have one without the other.
Right.
He said, remember the Foo Fighters. Orbs would fly along beside the bombers, World War II, right? In front of the windshield or out of the wingtip, little orbs. They can step right out of the orb. I've seen them do it. So you're an experiencer. Do you? One thing I'd look for is if you have Native American blood.
I told you, it's in the DNA. It's in the bloodline.
That's where it's at. I know for sure. And I can say that from the people that are studying this. And there's a lot of people studying this. And a big book came to my house with no return address. And it's the myths and legends of the Cherokee. And the book was written in 1891, published in 1891, long before there was a UFO or an airplane or anything. And they're talking about the Cherokee little people in North Carolina, these little beings and missing time. It's all documented in this book. So they know there's a connection there to the Native American, to the Cherokee. And a lot of people believe the Cherokee are part of the lost tribe of Israel. In fact, they've proven it through the genetics, the DNA. Mm-hmm. They have one God, Yehovah. Sounds like Yahweh, right?
Yahweh, yeah, sounds like it to me.
Yehovah is what they call it, the one true God. The Cherokees were the one that had that. All the other Indians had many gods, but the Cherokee had one God, and they had a Jewish dialect. So I don't know the wheres and whats. I leave that to the PhDs, but yet they depend on me to tell them, or you, or data. And they're gathering data all around this planet. People are trying to figure this thing out. And we're getting closer. We're not there.
Well, I have another guest, and this ties into Colleen's situation as well. Mark Verricchio asks, do shadow people come from craft, and are there different types of shadow people?
Sure.
It says, I'm new to interacting with that was a very good question, sorry. That wasn't part of it. But so he wants to know if, that was not part of the question. He wants to know if shadow people are related to the ET reality, to the spiritual realm of the ETs.
That's who they are, or even ghosts. The craft can be near and outstep these beings. They can look like shadow people, invisible to visible. They can be either or. But one thing I will say is I'm sure of, at least I feel like I am, once your eyes are open, if I can have Colleen at my house, she's almost there. She's questioning this thing. If I had you for a couple of days until something shows up and I prove it to you and you finally get it, then you get this truth switch that just flips, and it's automatically, you know it for sure. There's no more I believe it, I doubt it. This thing, seeing is believing, is the deal. That's why so many skeptics out there, they can't never believe. I feel sorry for them. They just don't have the mental capacity to understand. Some of these people don't. And that's okay. their generation will be dead and gone, and the next one will understand it better. These older generations of people will never get it. Some will, some won't. But once you learn it, once you know the truth, it raises your frequency, your vibration. I hear this frequency all the time in my ears now. It's higher pitch. But once you understand it, you start seeing and experiencing it more and more and more. So you begin to see other things like ghosts, to shadow people that could be anything. It could be dark. If you're a negative person, I would imagine I'd be scared what might show up. But if you're a positive person and you live a happy, life with your family or, whatever, then I wouldn't worry about any negative stuff. You'll know it. You'll feel it. But it's a knowing. It's a frequency.
Do you feel that there's a different time in one's life or a special time in one's life when people start identifying these experiences or really picking up on them? Do you think that there's a certain time, or is it just any time in your life you sort of have an awakening? Or
I think it comes with the heartache. An old friend of mine from down in Cape Canaveral told me that his thoughts were that from all of what he had heard was most people that had trauma or heartache of some sort would experience this. Maybe it's in the bloodline, but I do think it's the time. I think it's now. I think it's time for the truth to come out because the population on Earth and the world's going south. The weather climate change is crazy. People are in trouble. People are dying and starving all around the world, and you got folks that are just totally oblivious to helping anyone, and a lot of heartache and suffering, and they're going to step in and they're going to see to it that the truth is told. That's just my thought. I think it's the time. I think it's now, and I think some of us were put here to wake others up to that.
It's really funny that you mention heartache because my mom and I lost my brother about 10 years ago.
There you go.
And a lot of this started really picking up right after he died.
There you go.
And of course, you're in extreme depression. Your heart is broken, and you're praying for just to be able to make it through the day. But there's been missing or strange times where I've been drugged, and coming through those experiences, you really just wonder, first of all, who did it and why, and then how did you survive? But so that's interesting that you make the connection with heartache or loss or that type of trauma. But I have another guy who, Kenneth Hopkins, and he wants to know about missing time and how it's connected with a lot of abductions. Do you refer to them as blackouts or just missing time? And he wants an explanation on actual missing time.
Well, that's the hardest thing I ever had to deal with in my life was the missing time part. And, being gone in my thought for 20 minutes, but realistically 4.5 hours, nobody could tell me that I was gone over 20 minutes. Nobody. And I had my son and these 3 other guys looking me in the face, and the MUFON investigators sitting there telling me, you are missing time. I could not believe them. And every time I tried to think about it, I'd have these excruciating headaches would come. So MUFON was kind enough to bring in this regression therapist, Dr. Michael O'Connell, trained with John Mack from Harvard. And he did a regression with me, and I started remembering everything. And over the course of a year or so, I pretty much remembered everything. So I don't know how they do it. I've heard talk that they have a special little pin that they can shoot you from 100 yards away through the air, a chemical that can turn your thoughts back or wipe your thoughts to maybe you get on board a craft and you fly away very fast and you come back and very quick and you just can't remember. There's all kinds of things, but I can't explain how they do it. I just can tell you they did it to me. And through a very good doctor from Harvard, he helped me greatly understand what happened, during those 4.5 hours. And that I haven't spoken about. Where we went, what we did, all that is there's a lot there. That seemed like weeks. How that took place, I don't know. But 4 hours seemed like, 4 days or 4 weeks. Time. It's just a lot of memory there in that little bit of missing time.
Well, I wanted to share an episode of Missing Time that I had last year. So there was, I had a girlfriend over, and it was about 10:39. I walked her to the door, let her out, locked up, and my little one, who was 2 at the time, went downstairs with me, and I put on some Mickey Mouse and was just reading. And we literally woke up outside at 2:40 in the morning, and it was in October, so it was about maybe 45 degrees outside. I was in a T-shirt with some little thin pants on, and she was in a T-shirt and a diaper, and her arm was twisted through one of the sleeves, and she was screaming at me at the top of her lungs. And I literally was sitting on the couch outside, and my body was hanging, like my torso and my head were hanging down over my legs with my hands hanging down by my feet. And I remember just slowly lifting up and thinking, what in the world is going on? And it was like coming out of a fog. And I still, to this day, don't know what happened. But we ended up outside in 45-degree weather in the middle of the night, 2:40 in the morning. And at the time, my husband was working nights, so he really had no idea. He wasn't there to be able to say yay or nay. But it was probably the scariest time in my entire life. And I still, to this day, I question what the hell happened. Why did we end up outside? We were comfortable inside. It was nice and warm, and Mickey Mouse was on, And there's no way I would go outside with my daughter in a diaper. There's no way. So, being a responsible mother, that doesn't sound so responsible, and that's totally different from anything that I would do. But how would you best do you have any advice for people who are experiencing missing time, and how to deal with these episodes?
Well, if you have missing time, I would suggest a regression therapist, a good one. Very few know how to do that. But I would not think of it as negative, because for one, let's get back at you and your mother. That little orange ball, I assume Colleen was your mother, right? The little orange
Yes.
ball of fire might have been your brother. Very well could have been. Like I said, I got pictures with faces in those little orbs, those little orange balls. I got dogs and everything else, plain as day. So there's definitely something in them things, alive, but in another dimension, or that's able to come from theirs to ours. But remember the sadness that you went through over losing your brother to where you are now. You have a exciting new life. You're sharing this story with the world. What happened to you and what's still happening to you is amazing. You like it. You enjoy it. You got a radio show. But so keep the negativity out of it. There's no negativity to talk about, right? You'll find out.
Oh, yeah.
Even though it's crazy and strange, it's actually a blessing. And that's what you have to look for. Just like a friend of mine, Ray Hernandez.
Yes,
He's
I know
done
Ray.
a study that 90% of the people that has these experiences sees it as a positive after first a negative. So,
well, first the fear of not understanding, the fear of the unknown, and then the acceptance that you're coming back every day. Everything is fine. You're not being, physically abused in a way that is, really harmful. Yeah, you might have a few bruises. There might be some little spots, but it essentially is indifferent from bumping your leg in the night or, that type of thing. Right.
So, I just wanted to bring that in about, don't bring negativity to it. A lot of people tried that, but it poppycock. I haven't never experienced the negative. I have seen a couple things that I thought were negative, only because of negative people coming and being able to see into this other realm now, once your truth switch is switched, once you begin to see into that other world, you can see both good and bad. And I think there's both positive and negative things out there. And some of it are ghosts, ghostly things. Bigfoot. In fact, I think he's probably what they would call a cryptid, comes with a flying machine from another place possibly. But I don't know that. Just believe that. So there's more around us that we cannot see than there is that we can see. And for any intelligent person to sit here and say that it's not, they need to have their head examined. They need to go back to school because they're wrong to start with. Time to get past all that garbage and let's try to figure out what it is we're dealing with now, because it's real. Regardless of what these smart people want to try to say or believe, they're wrong. They just don't have the capability of understanding it. I have to say that, because I've taken the crap for a lot of years, and my children have, but now I have the proof, and I do.
Wow.
So
man, tonight,
right?
Tonight, heavy is the word tonight. Our guest tonight, Chris Bledsoe, who is chilling in, if you don't mind me saying, in Miami tonight.
Right, Miami, Florida.
Yeah.
I'm out
I've
walking
heard
around in a parking lot.
Are you? I've heard the police sirens. You're not running from the police or anything. They're not looking for you.
No. My wife is watching TV in the hotel room, and we're down here with friends, and I'm doing some holistic treatments for this rheumatoid arthritis and going through some workshops tomorrow. So
gotcha.
I just kind of walking around out here trying to get away so I'd have some quiet. But it sounds like the city comes alive this time of night, right? The sirens and
I hear you.
Cars. And,
I'm jealous. We're jealous. We're trying to get lucky in Kentucky, and you're you got game down in Miami. All right, Chris. This is as we finish up with you here. There's the segment that we end the show with. It's called Round of Shots. Kind of a tongue-in-cheek off our shooting from the lip name. I'm gonna throw 6 questions at you, just quick Q&A type thing. It's fun. Nothing you're gonna plead the fifth on.
Okay.
So have fun with it. First concert that you attended.
Concert. Which concert? I'm trying to think. A concert. Refresh my mind.
Music,
Was it
band.
Kiss? Was it Kiss? Was it Rolling Stones?
Was it Backstreet Boys?
This is a fun thing, right?
Yeah, fun. Yeah.
Okay. Concert, music.
Mm-hmm.
Lord, I like U2.
U2. Okay.
That was a fun.
Right.
U2.
All right. There you go. What was the last picture you took with your phone? Be honest. It was the wife.
It's probably an orb.
Let me see. Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now.
I hear you.
The last one I took was of an orb. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
An orange ball of fire, like your mother was talking about, that went across her floor. In fact, I'm gonna send it to you. Okay.
Cool. All right. Number 3. What is the weirdest scar you have, and how did you get it?
Oh, geez, you're going for the good ones tonight, Kevin.
Juicy.
I have a scar that's the size of an orange on my back from a shotgun blast, point blank, 6 feet away.
Holy hell! What have you not been through, Chris?
I was shot at 10 years old and was taken to outer space. I sped away from Earth very fast and saw the Earth get smaller and smaller. I've told that story for 45 years. I'm 55, so for 45 years.
Was that your first experience? Actually, was that your first experience? Wow.
Yes.
Was it? Oh, see, we uncovered that. 10 years old.
There you go.
Gunshot. Good Lord, man.
shot on
Are
New
you
Year's.
still friends with the guy?
I was up until he died. He died a year ago.
Okay.
Best buddy. My neighbor. We were bird hunting on New Year's Day, and he shot me by accident. My first cousin was there. He was 9. This guy was 9, and a farmer heard them fighting and screaming, "Who's going to get help?" And he come driving across the big field and threw me over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes. Threw me in his truck, took me to the hospital, and all I remember is waking up after surgery, and the only memories I had was being flying away from Earth at a very high rate of speed.
Jeez.
Seeing the stars. Yeah. So, and I still have 17 pieces of lead in my chest. One you can see on the front side, visible. I set the machine off, the X-ray machine at TSA every time I go through it.
Yeah, and the TSA guys lean over their, kind of tilt their head over to that little microphone on their arm. We got a situation here. How many body searches? How many body searches or what's the word I'm looking for? Searches have they done? Conducted on you?
A dozen or more until now. I get pre-check every time, and they just flag me through. They know who I am now when I come in.
They know you on a first name basis now.
Yeah.
Come on, Chris. Yeah. Actually, at this point, they say we're not going to strip search you because you start smiling at this point.
When you walk in that airport, they know who you are from that moment and where you're going and who your grandma is. No joke.
Yeah, gotcha. All right, this number 4. Name a celebrity that you would like to be stuck in an elevator with.
Oh, shucks. Stuck in an elevator. I don't want it to sound like, anything weird or anything, but just the kind of
Why not?
With.
We're okay with. We've been talking about weird stuff all night. Why wouldn't this?
You know what I'm getting at. I'm happily married and all that.
Would it be Miley Cyrus?
No, Lord. Absolutely not.
Good.
I would say.
Would it be a Kardashian or something like that?
No, it would be an old timer like Mel Gibson or one of those guys that I could just sit and talk. But I'd say Mel Gibson, only because he knows who I am.
Well, there you go. Now that's cool.
Yeah. So who's the celebrity in this case? Who's the celebrity in this case, Chris?
We got him on tonight. That's right.
Yeah, we got him on tonight.
There was talk about him playing my part at one time. That's crazy. Man.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, number 5. And this is actually this question kind of goes with interviews. What is the one question that you hate to answer?
The one question that I hate to answer.
Which will be the next question I'll ask. I'm joking.
I really don't have any I hate to answer because I'm not embarrassed anymore, or there's just some that I cannot answer, and but there's really none that I hate to answer. Because I'm not embarrassed, If people don't believe me, I don't care. I have nothing that I am ashamed about. They either believe or they don't. So, but I don't really hate to answer any of them, other than questions about high-level people that I can't talk about.
Well, then that would be the answer then, right?
Right.
You won't give us one little sniff or tease. You can't give us some initials or something.
No,
something juicy.
I'd better stay away from that area. I'll just say next year, maybe if we all get lucky. I
in
think
Kentucky,
if the stars align correctly, come next year, some news will come out about some exciting things. I would say everybody needs to pay attention to Tom DeLonge.
Word.
Watch what happens there.
So you did, but did say a name. Thank you. We got it out of you. You said a name.
Man, I thought that was off limits tonight.
You know what?
Well,
we just
I'm just saying he's not a joke. He's a very smart guy, and all these people out there are, they have all these opinions and ideas, and it's understandable, but give the guy a chance and see what he comes up with. He's a smart person. He's not a joke. He's probably got more brains than half the people we know.
I'm digressing here for a second, but if 2017 comes and we are enlightened with whatever, a lot of our questions that we ask, and when it comes to ufology or whatever, some of those questions, most, all get answered. Where do we go from there as far as conversation? Because it sounds like I'm in straight shooting here, Tiffany. How do we do our shows at that point? Because we talk, we do a show, right? Well, go ahead. I think you know where I'm getting at, but
I exactly know where you're getting at. Let's just say that a new something comes out next year, and some serious people come to the table. It's going to be a new stage. The UFO community is going to have to figure out where they fit in now. And I think that's what you're getting at. And the first thing I would get away from is government conspiracy.
Right.
I'm not into that,
Okay.
And anybody that is may not get a seat at the table.
Okay.
Because our people and our government are very serious people, and they're very much pro-country. So, but it's just, I don't know, Kevin. It's just going to be if it all comes about and things happen, I suspect you'll see scientists, very serious scientists, not self-proclaimed investigators, but people that have very big credentials, that have that we don't know about, but are there, and it'll be international probably. Who knows? Right. I don't know. Right. I'm just a fly on the wall, right? And I just so happen to know a lot of people. I'm lucky.
You and Tiffany are, to me, proxy to the big picture that hopefully in my lifetime gets answered. Those questions that have been noodling in my head for a long time get answered. So
I don't know if they can answer those all, but they'll give it a shot, maybe.
They'll give it a shot. All right, this is the last one for you, Chris. If you had access to a time machine, you can go anywhere in the past, your living past, pre-birth past, where would you go?
I would go back to see my father.
Love it.
That would be straight, as good as I can get it. I could care less about anything else.
Enough said.
Yeah.
Tiff, man, or lady, what a very cool show tonight, man.
Yeah. I feel like this was one of those shows that was led by the guest, which is fairly rare, because usually you're pulling the information out of them. But Chris, you were such a great storyteller, and being able to provide all of those information and all of those details tonight was a gift to us, and I do appreciate first of all you being able to come on with us and share your story, but also the friendship that we've developed, and thank you so much from Kevin and I. Thank you so much for coming on this evening.
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate you inviting me, and I'd be open to come again sometime. So, but
we'll do
appreciate it.
Yes.
Maybe after the beginning of the year, and your tongue will be a little looser.
A little.
Just a dab.
It might be that I don't have to say a thing that some other people do. So just hang on to your seatbelt. Let's hope it all takes place, and watch what Tom does. He's no dummy.
Very
smart guy.
Good deal. Chris Bledsoe came on and killed it tonight. Hey, have fun in Miami.
Bienvenido Miami. What is it? Bienvenido a Miami. Is that right? Welcome to Miami. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, guys. And
all right, enjoy that massage too. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope that happens tomorrow. I need it badly. It's good for RA, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, all right, Tip, I sent you a photo of an orange fireball. Share that with your mother and ask her if that's
I've already done it. Yep, already forwarded it. Yep.
Cool.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you
so much. Take
I'll
care,
get with
Chris.
you soon.
Yeah.
Okay. Anytime.
All right. Take care, brother.
All right. Bye.
Amazing.
Chris
Great show.
Bledsoe. Yeah. Wow. Heavy on several levels. We're chatting, via Messenger as we do, and one of the most detailed storytelling that we've had on this show. Amazing. Yeah.
Can you all
I really.
We can.
Yeah, we
Hi,
actually
Colleen.
can. Yeah.
You're not going to
Hello.
believe this.
Oh, no, what?
From you, no.
is
At this point,
exactly
I'll believe
what I
anything.
saw. That is exactly what went through my room here.
Well, he said it
What?
was probably,
Where'd it go?
he
Wait
said
a
it was
minute. Oh,
probably
there it is.
Carl.
Wait a minute. What
I
went
don't know
through
what
your room?
I just sent the picture.
Like that little fireball thing, that picture.
What?
That was exactly.
Have you been drinking Fireball tonight, Queen?
What's fireball?
Okay, never mind.
Listen, I already took my nap earlier. Tiffany had to keep waking me up. I've been up since before 6 this morning, so it's been a long day for me.
Is it bedtime for you now, or are you still wound up?
Well, no, after these shows, who could sleep?
I think you've fallen asleep on us a time or two, but
I have.
not tonight. Not tonight.
I
Tonight?
muted. I try to mute it. No, I did tonight, but it was on mute. And then Tiffany, she'll send me a text, and I hear the buzzer in my bed. But yeah, I'm telling you, this little fireball
buzzer
thing was
in my bed. Nice soundbite. I like that. Buzzer in my bed.
My phone buzzes. It hums, and then it vibrates.
Yeah. Exactly.
We got it.
Your phone.
Yeah.
We got it.
Yeah.
But
anyway,
vibrating,
that's
vibrate sounds from the bed. We've
Keep
had
it clean. Keep it clean, Kevin.
Oh, it's my telephone.
It is your mom. You're right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's my telephone, my
All
cell
right.
phone.
Gotcha.
You know how you put on? I have to silence it because Carl's asleep.
Carl.
Okay,
What's
so
Carl's
the
nickname
fireball-
again?
Big
What's Carl's
Daddy.
nickname again? Big Daddy. Yeah.
Big Daddy. Yeah.
Okay.
Big Daddy,
Okay.
we've loved for a long time.